What's up, everybody? I'm Hex Frogger. For those who don't know, creator of the Appalachian Conflict 5 by 5 kilometer Arma Reforger map. And today I'd like to set out and do my best to teach you all the step-by-step process for creating an Arma Reforger map. So the first step is going to be getting all of the tools and resources we need readily available. First, go ahead, if you don't already have it, download Arma Reforger Tools off of Steam. The next thing you're going to need is QGIS Legacy version 3.36.1. And the link for that will be in the description of this video. You're going to need access to Google Earth. You're going to need to create an account for earthdata.nasa.gov. We'll be getting our height map from here. You'll need to download gtt.zip, and do not unzip this, from the link in the description. And also download till-w terrain tools from the link in the description. You will need Python to run this, but it's later in the process and it'll be okay to download it then. And with that, let's just jump right into things. I'll be meeting everybody here in the next clip on Google Earth. We'll be creating a very simple KML file. I'll walk you through step by step how to do that, and we'll move from there. So here we are. If your screen doesn't look just like this, if it's pulled you up on the globe, that's totally fine. The first place we're heading is the search bar, and everybody's going to have that no matter where you are on Google Earth. You should know where your project is at this point. If you want any tips in terms of citing, best practices, I'll have a Discord link. You can look in there. I'll have some resources posted as far as that goes. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume you know where your map is. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be making my map right here outside of the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve Visitor Center in Oklahoma. So this is the section that I am targeting. For what we're doing right now, that really doesn't matter. We just need to be in the general area. So you're going to click close on wherever you've searched in. You're going to click file. You're going to click new local KML file. And you're going to come right here to the add path or polygon tool. Click on that. You're going to make whatever shape you want. It does not matter. Just trust me here. And click save to project. Okay, we're done here. Name this whatever your map is going to be. So mine's going to be Oklahoma Prairie. Click file once again and export as local KML file. And there you go. It's just downloaded into your downloads folder or wherever you have your set path for your browser downloads. And just keep mind of that because we will be using that here in about 5 minutes. But that's all we need from Google Earth. The next thing we'll be doing is we'll be heading to earthdata.nasa.gov. So if you don't have an account already, make one now and meet me on the homepage. I told a little bit of a fib at the end of that last clip. We're actually going to need to head into Google Maps real quick just to grab the coordinates of our site. So type in whatever, wherever your map is at, just like you did on Google Earth, the same way you cited it there, and just left click. This is all we need to do here. You're just going to copy these coordinates. Okay. And now we're on earthdata.nasa.gov. Start on the homepage and just follow me here. Click Data Tools, Earth Data Search, launch Earth Data Search, and now we have the map open. We need to select our data set. So type in 1 arc second, press search, and we're looking for this. NASA Shuttle Radar Topography Mission Global 1 arc second V003. Click on this. We're going to locate our project. So that's why we just got that lat long. Click right here, search by point, Control V. And if you're asking yourself, hey, why didn't he just do this in Google Earth? It does not provide you the lat long in the right format. So just trust me on that one. You can go test it for yourself if you want, but you'd be wasting your time. But we've selected our chunk now. This is in the same area. This is the same spot that our previous Google Earth KML's at. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this download icon. We're going to click the file name. And it's going to download our height file. I've already downloaded this before just as a did a little practice run through, but yours will not have one, obviously, and you're going to open that up and just extract it. It doesn't super matter where you extract it to. I'm lazy. It's getting extracted in my downloads folder, but wherever you see fit, throw it in. We will be making a project folder before we get into QGIS, just because we do want to keep track of where those files are being stored. Because those will be going into the Enfusion engine and we want to keep track of those for the entire process. So in this next clip, we will actually be heading into QGIS for the first time and actually doing work. All of this has just been gathering data and, really just preliminary groundwork. So this is kind of where it gets exciting, and I look forward to jumping into this shit some more. So now we're in QGIS version 3.36.1, and make sure you're in this version. I'm not sure if it works in other previous versions, even older than 3.36 or newer than 3.36, but not as new as the current version. But I do know the current version does not work with the plugin. So what we want to do first is make sure you have gtt.zip downloaded. You're going to come up here to plugins. You're going to click manage and install plugins. Install from zip, 3 dots. Right here. Click install, and it's done. That's it. You don't have to restart QGIS, nothing. Come up here, click plugins again, open the dropdown, game terrains, and now it's open. If for some reason you have the debug menu open, just close that and it will be right here on the right. So first things first, let's make sure all of our settings are the same. So you'll set your map size to whatever your map size is. I haven't touched on this yet, but my preferred map size is somewhere between 5x5 and 6x6. The max I would recommend is 8x8 because you have to remember, let's just, for example, the difference between a 5x5 and an 8x8 map is 25 meters squared or kilometers squared and 64 kilometers squared, right? More than double the space you're going to have to fill. So keep that in mind when you're sizing your map, right? For my example, it's going to be 5,500 meters by 5,500 meters. Make sure your engine is set to Enfusion. If it's on Arma, it's a little deceiving. That will not work. So make sure you're on Enfusion. Sat map, we're going to be using the ArcGIS sat map. So make sure you're on that. Zoom level 17. Resolution will be -1 pixels, which I imagine just sets it to a default value. And then 4096 pixels right here. You're going to want to make sure export sat map is selected here. Export mask is not selected here. On height map, we have scale vertical range selected. And unless you're doing an island, do not select lower terrain to 0 meters. And then you have export selected. Unselect everything for roads and make sure you have nothing going on here that's not on mine. I don't imagine you would. But we're going to jump right into this. All you have to do is click add sat map. And now you're looking at this, you're like, okay, that's the whole entire planet. Where do I search up my map? You can't. But that's why we made our KML file. So go ahead, find your KML file you just made, and you're just going to drag that over. Minimize that and click add layers. Boom, we've got a KML. Where's it at? Boom, I'll tell you. Left click, right click, zoom to layers. So that's why it didn't matter the shape. That's why it didn't matter anything aside from, can it get us there? Yes, it can. Delete that, dude. We don't need it anymore. Get rid of it. Maybe don't delete the file in case you have to come back and do this again, but delete it off the map. And at this point, we are ready to go. You're going to go mark area. Oh, we're not ready to go. I'm getting ahead of myself here. You have to save the project. Okay, and this is at this point, you're going to want to make a, see, I've already done a little test of this. You're going to want to make a folder on your desktop, in your documents, folder, wherever you prefer to keep stuff like this. Make a folder called your map name, right? So this is Oklahoma Prairie. I'm going to open that up and I'm going to save this as Oklahoma Prairie. Save. Now we're ready to mark the area. I want to grab this road circuit here. Like I said, I'll have some tips and tricks, best practices when it comes to siting your map, but that's one big thing. Make sure you have an existing road structure for at least your first map. And I'm just going to try and center it to the best of my ability. So let's say I'm an idiot. I did that and I want this. You just remove the layer. And I'm just getting ahead of this in case you've already messed this up or something and you're geeked out. Like, oh no, I ruined it. I have to restart this whole QGIS thing. No, that wouldn't even be that big of a deal, but you don't. Just remove the layer, click mark area again, and re-click. Now the final step we're gonna have in here, or this final step's got some sub-steps, you know, it's like a pre-calc homework assignment. It's 3 problems, but it's 3 A, B, C, D, E, F. It's one of those, but that's okay. They're quick, unlike, you know, pre-calc homework assignments for the most part. But let's jump in. Let's grab our height map that we just extracted. It's right here, and you just drag it over. It doesn't have to go in there. You just drag it onto the window. We are going to move this in between these 2 layers. We're going to sandwich it in just so we can see where our box is at. I don't think you technically have to do that, but for sanity's sake, I would. Click right here. We're going to need to rename this layer. It has to be renamed this GTT_ height map. This is so that the plugin will actually work. And once again, just confirm we've got all the same settings here, and you're literally just going to click export and wait for it to export. It'll take between 1 and 10 minutes. It's a very easy process, pretty quick for what you're getting out of it. And in the next clip, we will be on my desktop about to open the Enfusion engine / Arma Reforger Tools for the first time. This is when it actually, I know I just said it's getting exciting. This is when it's actually about to get super exciting and you're about to see something happen. So let's jump right onto the desktop. And we've landed on the desktop. If you're anything like me, you're inspecting my desktop right now, gauging what kind of a man I am. Cut it out. Let's just do what we need to do. Open up Arma Reforger Tools. And this goes for anything you've seen prior to this and anything going forward. Anything you see in my engine and any of those tools that you don't have on your end, you're not going to have. I have almost 500 hours on Arma Reforger, almost said Arma Enfusion Tools. Arma Reforger Tools, so, you know, this is a lot of just random stuff I've accumulated. What we're going to be doing is clicking Add Project, Create New Project. You're going to name this whatever you've been naming everything. You won't have any dependencies once again, right? We'll get into that later. I'll show you guys how to add dependencies to your map, all that fun stuff. Just go ahead and click Create. It's going to open the engine up for us. And this, if it's your first look, you're not going to have this. I'll close out of these. This is what you are going to be seeing. The world editor, particle editor, animation editor, script editor, audio editor, string editor, procedural animation editor, my apologies, behavior editor. We're going to be working primarily in the world editor. At some point, I'll likely show you some audio editor functions, and that's about it. That's all I've really touched. Some particle editing, but most of my work's been done in world editor, along with adjusting some configs and things of that nature, which again, we'll touch on later, but for what we're doing now for creating a map, you don't really need to worry about a whole lot. Open that up and we've got a blank canvas. More blank than blank gets. We've got a blank space. We've got a 3D space. The generic world entity is our 3D space that we're inside of right now. Let's make it to where we're on top of a map. How about that? So if you don't have this create tab right here where I just clicked on hierarchy, right click right next to here, check off create. While we're doing that, you're going to want to have your object properties and your current tool. So same thing to the right of object properties. If you don't have current tool, check that off. So come into the create tab, type in generic. You're going to drag in this generic terrain entity. Before you do anything else, reset the default value of its coordinates to 0, 0, 0. Just click that reset button. We're now going to go ahead, also add the generic world light entity from the create tab. And we're going to go search up the camera manager. So those are in. That should be, for now, everything we need out of the Create tab. Come down to the resource browser. See right here, I'm in Arma Reforger and then prefabs and structures. That's my file path. Make sure you're just in Arma Reforger. Type world pp, grab generic world pp default. You're going to go ahead and type time and weather manager entity, drag that in, and that's it for the managers right now. So once you have all this in, and I probably should have told you already, but you don't really need to be moving around. I'll teach you the basic functions of the camera. So to do a stationary rotation, you're just going to hold down on the right click and just move the mouse. Okay, if you want to move around like I have been like this, you continue holding the right mouse button and just use WASD. It's like how I imagine you would fly a UFO with mouse and keyboard. That's pretty much it. To speed it up and slow it down, you, once again, holding down on the right mouse button, are going to use the scroll wheel up to speed up, down to slow down. Very simple, super easy movement controls, honestly. Like, compared to Blender, I much prefer this. And that's also, I started using Blender after I got into Arma Reforger Tools. So it was probably more so a muscle memory thing and kind of trying to go against how I want to move around a space. But let's just get into the actual map making process. We don't need to talk about the philosophies of control mechanics in design engines. We can, maybe I'll make a whole video on that. Maybe that'd be a good video. It wouldn't, but I could probably do it if I wanted to. Let's save this though. Let's get off that. Let's save this world. We're going to name this, in my case, Oklahoma Prairie. Come down here, make sure you're saving it in the proper folder. It won't let you save them in here, but don't save it in logs or profile. You're going to click OK. And now we're saved. Now we can actually go ahead, click on our generic terrain entity, right click, and click Create New Terrain. Ignore everything except for this right here. You need this, which corresponds with this, to provide you with a canvas size that is as close to your map size as possible without being under. You want to go over rather than under. So I'll show you, for example, I'm 5,500 meters by 5,500 meters. So I'm not going to go with 5.376 kilometers, right? I'm going to go with 5.632 kilometers, which is the 2816 by 2816 terrain grid size. Click Create, and oh my gosh, we have it. We've got it. I mean, this is incredible. Like, at this point, we are 2 steps away, and you're probably like, just do it. Just shut the fuck up and show me how to do it. But we are 2 steps away from putting in our terrain and satellite map, and then we have an actual map to work on. So come in here, go to your terrain tool. The hotkey for that is Control T. You're going to want to remember that, or shortcut. You're going to want to remember that shortcut immediately. Same with Control S. That's save. I'll tell you the other ones as we get into them, but really Control T and Control S, you're going to be using those thousands of times a session, guaranteed. If you're doing things right, and if you're really grinding and hustling and manufacturing. Let me stop again and get back into it. We're going to go to our terrain tool. Like I said, it's right here, as I told you earlier, to put it in. If it's not here, if it's somewhere weird, you just grab the banner, drop it in here. This is how I prefer my layout. You can do yours however you want. As you just saw, there's a lot of customizability there. So manage, import height map, click these 3 dots, and now we're going to navigate to wherever we saved that QGIS file. You're going to find that folder. It's going to be a new folder called GTT_export. Grab the height map out of there, click OK. You don't have to adjust anything in there. Click OK again. Okay. So if you're eagle-eyed, you probably just noticed the cut in this video. So when I added the height map, if you saw right there at the end, it kind of spawned me down here in this blank space looking at nothing. And you're able to find it usually right? But if you're not able to locate your terrain, for whatever reason, just go to your time and weather manager that you added previously, set all of these coordinates to 1,000, and then double click on time and weather manager. It will bring you right to that location, which at that point will be above the map. I ran into that right now, making this video, so I can imagine that'll be an issue for some people. So once again, if you do run into that, not the end of the world, very simple fix. Just follow that. And if your other managers are there, drag them up at this point. Now's a good time to kind of show you how the manipulation of entities in this engine works. So in the standard mode, you're going to be in the transform mode, right? With your x/y, y/x, and your z-axis adjustability. You can also grab the ball and free move it, but as you know, right, we're working on a 2D plane in a 3D space. Grabbing the ball does not do exactly what you want it to typically. You can grab these and it'll allow you to only move it on that plane, but with more kind of optionality versus just riding on this actual axis. So hopefully that part makes sense on how to just, make basic transformation movements. To rotate, this one you wouldn't really rotate. This is the time and weather manager, but just for a tutorial sake, you press E, or you can come up here, you can click rotate. It's much easier. You're already going to be using WASD so much. Use your pointer finger, click E. Maybe you're a middle finger guy. I don't know why you would be. I'm just not thinking about that. But click E, that's going to open your rotate tool. You can once again rotate by the 3 axes, same exact axes. To switch, actually, here's a good time to show you to switch between the world bounds and I think it's gizmo bound, world and gizmo. Object. There's gizmo comes in somewhere. I'm not making that up. But you can press X, and let me rotate this a little bit so that you can see. You see when I'm pressing X, it's actually affecting whether it's being moved based upon the terrain, like the world space, or if it's being moved based upon, like transformed based upon how I have it oriented, how I have this specific prefab oriented. And you may not use that for a little bit, but it'll be nice to know because you'll accidentally do it at some point. You'll be like, oh my God, I can't get this thing to move how I want it to. It's all off kilter. And it's because you pressed X on accident, going to press Control C to copy something, right? And so those are some of the things that I intend to teach in this video. Some of the unintentional shortcuts that you can make, like H. If I press H, so I guess it's not going to work on this, but on a prefab, it's going to hide that. And if you're moving quickly and you're tired, you've been working for a few hours, you might not notice that, and all of a sudden you think you've deleted it. You undo 5 different things. You've just undid, 5 random, unrelated things that you don't know what they are now, and the object was there the whole time. All you did was hide it, right? You just have to press H again, and it will reveal itself. There's a few things like that we'll get into as I move through this, but for basic transformation, it's going to be W to get back to this transformation, E to get to rotate. They're all up here as well. And then R to resize. Once again, we're not going to be doing that with any of this, but you will be using those tools quite a bit. But let's get into the satellite map part of this, right? Let's see the map. So go back to Terrain Tool, go to Manage, and click Import Satellite Map. It's going to navigate us to the same folder that we were in for the height map, and you're going to select that. Unclick in linear color space here, and click OK. And then click yes. Oh my God. I mean, how gorgeous is that, dude? That's incredible. It is a little bit of a tease because none of this is actually there. You're going to have to paint all of that terrain and, take liberties when it comes to that. You're not going for 1-to-1 when it comes to terrain design. You're limited to 5 maximum textures per block, and a block is this big. So you actually, from what I saw in 1.6, can up it to 7. I think it's actually, yeah, right here. Change maximum number of layers to 7. I'm not sure I would do that. It mentions render times increase, which I have to imagine will also affect client and server side performance probably. I try and stray away from anything that's going to have any level of negative impact on server performance, client performance, anything like that, because it's already hard enough to optimize these maps at times. So anything you can do to avoid unnecessary bloat, do your best to. And at this point, we have our map down. We're ready to start working. We're ready to actually get into this. And the first part of that is building the surrounding atmosphere, right? So come into your world entity, and we're going to work out all of these environment presets. For the sky preset, you're going to click the three dots, type in atmosphere, grab atmosphere.emap. Planet preset, click this 3 times. For 0, we're going sun, scroll to the bottom, sun 01 emap. 1, we want moon, moon emap. 2, we want stars, stars emap. Sky clouds renderer, switch that to sky volumetric clouds renderer. For the clouds preset, we'll be looking up volumetric, clouds volumetric. I'm not going to be adding an ocean material or ocean simulation to this map because I'm not an island and I don't want an ocean under my map. If I don't need an ocean under my map, I don't want an ocean under my map. Once again, it's not something I've tested personally, right? I've done any variable testing on that with it on and with it off, but I do know it generates a whole ocean under your map, and I can't imagine that's great for performance. So if you don't have an island, you don't need it, don't add it. You do, however, need the water simulation, which is, you might be typing in water right now. I know I did the first time I learned how to do this. It's not, it's the bump sim. Get the bump sim emap. Shore simulation, type in shore sim. For the lens flare config, just type in lensflare.conf. Save. And we literally have the entire base of the map built. We're about to jump into actual map work. So if you see when you get closer, it creates this transparent overlay when you've got the default texture. This is new to 1.6. It used to be that it was kind of a dirt looking texture, and as you got closer and closer it would remove that dirt texture. But I much prefer this for early level work. Later down the road when you're building the map, you may want to swap that just so it's not as distracting to see so much underneath. But it is really nice, I have to say. This will be my first time from scratch working with this grid pattern, so maybe things change, but overall, I'm very happy with how the map making process has evolved since I've started. So I'm going to cut it here, but in this next clip, we're actually going to get into the map design, like the actual map work. We'll start with terrain painting. We'll add our textures, our terrain textures, and we'll move from there. On this map, I'll be covering basic road construction, laydowns, basic terrain painting. I'll cover prefabs, I'll cover forests, I'll cover walls, pretty much all of the basics that you could think of. And then we'll jump into my map for the last section of this video, and I'll give you some good examples of things. Maybe you won't think they're good examples. I think they're good examples of some things you can do with the map and some ways to play with the assets that are already available to you. Kind of a crazy cut, but I started rambling there at the end and did not want to re-record that section. So let's get right into actually working on the map. So this is going to be a little terrain painting tutorial. It's going to be very bare bones. I'm not going to give you like a lot of detail. It's really something you're going to have to learn on your own and figure out your own methodology for things. I'll give you the technical details, right? And I'll tell you what everything means here. But implementing these things and making them work, it's going to be up to you at the end of the day. So first things first, we need to head into the terrain tool. Once again, Control T. I'm going to really emphasize that just to drill it into your head, because honestly, you'll be thankful down the road. Paint, come into, like I said, terrain tool, paint. You're going to come down here into the resource browser, and we need to actually add our terrain textures. So we're in Arma Reforger once again. Come to this folder right here, terrains, common, surfaces. And since 1.6 dropped, there are new surfaces actually. You don't need to add all these. I'm going to, and honestly, I would recommend, just add them all. It's not hard to like navigate through them. This is what it looks like when they're on there. You can literally see what the preview looks like. But once we have that, we are ready technically to start painting. I'll explain the sculpt tool and what these manage functions mean here in a minute, but let's go put down a little edge, right? This is a forest edge. So, okay, so I've decided not to show you guys a tutorial on how to paint necessarily from a artistic perspective, but I will show you from a technical perspective how to use the tool. So once again, we're in the terrain tool, we're in paint, and the first adjuster we'll look at. And we're going to look at this with the fall off at 100. Don't think about fall off. An angle can be at 0. Fall off is going to be at 100 right now, and I'll explain that here in a moment. But strength just means, how dense, basically, in a sense, is it applying the texture from what I understand. And I could be wrong there, but that's my understanding. So you'll see when I hit and just move just a hair, it's that full circle. You see that? Everything within the circle. Tap it one more time, because it maybe didn't fill it entirely, but I'll do it again. Just a slight movement. I barely moved the mouse and it's full. We'll drop the strength down to 20, and it takes a little bit more movement out of the mouse. It's not obvious, but you see right there, see how many pixels I had to move over? We'll go back up to 40, and I'll show you. It's like 2 less pixels, arguably, which I think is probably doesn't seem like a lot, but it will be a lot, and I promise you that. Let's go down to 10, and you might even see or let's go to 5, and you'll see a better example, right? See how many pixels I'm having to move over before it's actually filling the space? The space is in between, right? That's the big thing. It's the spaces in between towards the center. And towards the center isn't the best explanation for that, but I think you'll understand what I mean, because we're going to get to fall off and you'll understand why I kind of mentioned that specifically. So we're going to move strength back up to 40, fall off at 100. You've already seen that. It's immediate, right? Move to a 50 setting on the fall off. Fall off is 0 to 100. You can see the outer edges now are being affected. The inner section is as well. That's why I said it's not the best way to compare the two, but you can totally see the difference between these, right? Like how it's filling in, what's happening. It's like a bloom almost with the fall off, when you're turning the fall off down. Which to me is a little bit counterintuitive when I'm working and I have to like always switch back from 100 to 0 when I'm trying to do, one or the other. But it doesn't mean I don't get there and that you won't get there and that it matters at the end of the day. All that matters is that you understand and can work your way through this. So obviously you can manipulate them both at the same time. You can also manipulate the size, the radius right here. And you can see a little bit more has happened. I want to start telling you guys how to adjust the radius and adjust all these values. Went on a crazy tangent. So to adjust these sizes, right, you can click and drag left and right. You can press in and type in a specific value. And for strength, if you want to do that without moving your cursor over here, hold shift and adjust your mouse position up or down. Same for radius, except for it's hold control, and right there, you can see. That is going to be super helpful. Next thing that you need to understand with this is you can obviously change your shape, right? You can have a linear, you can have a smooth. Let's see the difference between those. There's a smooth, there's a linear. It's a little different of a stroke. There's another, let's do 3 linears. 1, 2, 3. Do 3 smooths. 1, 2, 3. Those aren't too different. Smooth seems to have a little bit more kind of texturing at the edge. Sphere probably the least texturing and arguably the largest for the same radius size and same settings. Inverted sphere, I've never messed with. As I'm teaching you guys this, I'm realizing I have not been switching between these much in my terrain painting. Like I said, this is not my forte. This is not my specialty. That's why I'm not teaching you how to paint from an artistic perspective. I do it. Ooh, I like inverted sphere actually to kind of get some stippling down almost. But yeah, once again, this is not really my forte. This isn't what I got into maps for. I really just wanted to make my college town an Arma Reforger, and I imagine that's what a lot of you are, you know, doing is something similar to that. So now that we've looked at the difference between linear, smooth, sphere, and inverted sphere, you can see obviously we could paint with a rectangle. You know, we've got a little harder edge. I don't use the rectangle tool too much. Once again, I should probably use it more. I actually have used this one at least a little bit. I've really never used inverted sphere. User, I've never done this. Oh, okay, I guess you'd have to import an actual brush file. I don't know, anyone who's familiar with like real art design softwares, if that's a thing, like I think it is, and I don't even know any of the software names, but I've seen shit on TikTok or whatever of people talking about like, oh, this brush I downloaded. And that's when I learned you could download brushes, which crazy to me, but probably not very crazy to anybody else. Let me show you one more thing in Paint, and then we will move into actually sculpting. So this is something that likely will come up down the road as you're building your map. You're gonna put, and actually let me turn my strength down so I can really get too many textures in here. You're gonna put too many textures down at a certain point, right? And it's gonna yell at you. See that? You see that hard edge right there, and it will not let me put any more in there. Go to Info and Diags. You're gonna find the affected blocks, which it looks like it's these three. Right up here in the top left, it's telling me, and I can't get over there. Hold on, let me drag my window in the right spot. Right here, you can see the 5 that we have. You can also see them here once it's selected, but just for like a continuous view, you can look up to here while you're looking at the map, so it's not as distracting. But to fix this, the most common thing you're gonna do is come in here and merge it with a similar. In most instances, it's going to be a similar texture, right? It's going to be you have 2 grasses. You accidentally use 2 different grasses when you really just needed to use one, and you weren't even trying to use that grass, but you know, you did one part of it last night and the next part the next day, forgot which grass it was. They looked close enough at the time. Speaking from experience, it'll happen, man. I promise. I absolutely promise you these things. Unless you're literally just way fucking better than I am, which could potentially be true. Let's move into sculpting though. Now that we've gotten painting out of the way and I've made a mess of this section of the map, let's kind of show you what it means to sculpt. In order to sculpt in this game, it sets your original strength to 30 on the sculpt tool. However, the scale is extremely deceptive. So that's halfway, and I barely clicked it. Like if I hold it for barely any time, we've got ridges on ridges on ridges. You'll never need that, really. You shouldn't. So make sure you're almost always staying like under 500, I'd say. And this is really when you're going to come in here and click and just type in whatever your, you know, strength you're looking for under 200. So hold left click, you're going to raise the surface right in the sculpt tool. If you hold left click while also holding alt, you're going to lower the surface. So this is the sculpt tool, obviously strength, radius. Fall off isn't as important with sculpting. It is, right? If you want to get more of a pointed top, turn down your fall off. If you want more of just like a uniform rise, turn up your fall off. But that you can more manage by just coming in and smoothing areas out as you see fit. And that's where, you know, I'll get into the smooth tool right here. The smooth tool is going to, based upon its kind of sample, right? It's going to take the average height of what it has within its bounds and normalize that. And at the rate at which it does that is dependent upon its speed. So if I turn that up, it's just gonna almost immediately flatten this out to a average height across, like, you can almost see that that was the average height across all of those points that it had. I don't know exactly how many data points it's taking within that, right? What its resolution is, none of that. But you can see what it's doing. It's normalizing, right? Smooth is more of like a normalizer. And flatten is exactly what flatten sounds like. And all of these tools, the strength and radius are all affected by shift clicking and hold and moving the mouse, or shift and moving the mouse, and click and moving the mouse. Smooth is a little finicky with the mouse movement turning it up. I will say you have to kind of like angle it to get it to go up, but the flatten tool is fine. The flatten tool is perfect, actually. You'll use this a lot if you're putting down like a house somewhere. Typically when I'll put a foundation down, I will just come in, I'll make it the size, I'll put it down to like right below the lowest point, because I want to affect all the points and bring them all down usually. And you almost always want to do that, right? Because the way that NASA is pulling this topography data and it's scanning, it's not going in and compensating for the fact that it is a house, right? It's just saying this is terrain. So when you're in these, just, shift down a little bit and pull it down like that, right? And there's a building next to it. We'll pull that down as well. And I'm not going to really put any buildings down right here, but this is just kind of an idea of how I would do this, because you don't want terrain coming up to the floor of your prefabs. You don't want any of that. You don't want ugly, kind of poor attention to detail spots like that. I have some on my map currently, and I hear about it all the time. I really don't care, and you probably really won't care that they're there, but you will care when for some reason everybody else does. And to get ahead of that, there's a nice little tip, I will say. And that really, I'll show you noise. Noise is, I don't know why you'd use noise, really. It's cool, I guess. But there's really no point to doing it, in my opinion. You can come in, though, and smooth it out after, which if you wanted to build like a snowboard or a ski mountain map and build the, I'm a snowboarder, I don't even know what they're called. Those little slaloms or whatever. I don't think it's even called a slalom. I know what they're called even, I just cannot remember it. But whatever those are called, that's kind of like that idea. And that's pretty much it for the terrain tool. Once again, you have all of like your smooth sphere, inverted sphere. All of this you really have to figure out by playing with it. It's all a feel thing. You get a feel for it, you get better at it. And as you work down your map, things start to just click together, right? Because this is a real place you're building, whether it's somewhere that's inhabited or, just the wild terrain. This is real life data. And so it should start making some sense. If it's not, then that might be a problem, right? But you should be fine in terms of like sculpting and figuring that out. It's hard to mess something up too bad. Don't like go crazy and add a mountain somewhere if you really, and then save your file and go do a bunch of other stuff if you don't want that to be there. But minor mistakes, first off, you can always undo. I would always recommend before you try going and fixing something, because you think you're gonna have to waste another 5-10 minutes like redoing it. If you undo it, just undo it, dude. Fixing terrain stuff like that with the tools, like say for example I'm to sculpt this up, if I wanted to just like sculpt that down back to where it was, like you can already see it's like trying to fix a dent in a car. You know what I mean? It's not ever going back to the exact same way that you had it by doing the quote reverse of what you just did. But that's where I'll wrap it up with terrain sculpting. I don't want to ramble too much in any of these sections because I will move to my map and show some more specific examples of these items. But we'll move into kind of a polyline tutorial and spline tutorial next. So we'll do roads, walls, all sorts of stuff. All right, so all the time that we spend here will pretty much just be in the vector tool, which is right up here. V is the shortcut, super easy to remember that one. And we'll just jump into this one. You're going to want to click new spline, make sure your snap to terrain checkbox is checked. And we're just going to come in. Oh, went away. Click down. It's always going to spawn 2 of these points, okay? Either grab one and move it the direction that you want to go, or just delete it. Either option works. Honestly, deleting is probably faster. I usually just move it real quick though. So to get started, you're just going to look, which way do I want to start? I'll go this way just because it's got a little bit more curvature to it. I can show you a little bit more. And you're going to hold control, left click. When you get to points like these, I'll kind of show you. You don't want to have a point right up against where you're going to have the curve starting. Really, you're going to want to start on the curve. And I'm going to center that a little better. And then get out of it relatively closely. And that's going to depend on what you've got coming at ahead. And it's really a feel-based thing, but you'll get the hang of it. And don't start adjusting anything back there until you finish a little bit more ahead of it, because it will adjust how this is being spawned in. But you can see we still need some adjustment. It's kind of falling off over here and then coming in a little tight here. So we'll grab this, we'll grab our tail off the back. And I don't ever recommend using the ball or any of these planes really, because if you had any vertical angle or decrease or add any vertical angle, it fucks with it in ways that you don't really want to deal with. So just kind of come in here, tweak that, probably you really just usually need to widen the curve or tighten the curve. In this instance, we just needed to tighten the curve a little bit. And we'll just work our way down a little bit. So you can do it like this, or you can, and this is how I do it typically, come in and grab a road and put it on there and build with the road on there so you can see actually as it's getting laid down. So to do that, go to the Arma Reforger folder, go into prefabs, WE generators, roads, asphalt, and then grab whichever one you prefer. Just take a look at them all. I like the narrow version right here, so I'll add this. And now you can see we've got a road and we can start working with the road on there and it will instantly populate, right, as we build. And I think it's really helpful to get a feel for, the issues that are arising and, the effect on the aesthetic, honestly, and the terrain, the surrounding terrain, because if you click right here on the actual road, and if you can't see that, just click the little drop down on the spline shape that you created and come into the object properties, and the adjust height map settings should be on. And if you zoom in on the road, you can see that it is bending and molding the terrain around it. It is the force, right? It's not being shaped by the surrounding terrain. It is shaping its surrounding terrain. It's kind of taking, once again, it feels like with the smooth tool, like an average and setting the road at that point. So the really nice thing about the adjust height map tool though, isn't just that it, adjusts the height map for the road itself. But when you get to weird intersections, like I'll show you right here. So press V again, or go to the vector tool right here, add a new spline, and I am going to meet these 2 roads, and you will see pretty quickly probably. Oh, boy, did I get unlucky. This one actually works really well. Typically, these are going to have, I'll kind of just fake it for you, an interaction like this, where you've got this weird kind of bump right where they meet up, because this is adjusting the height map, right? And you can see that. And then this is trying to, but it's like, well, I've got to, one of us has got to budge. Well, when they both have the same height map priority, they don't. So you just have to change one or the other. Go test it, see which one has a greater effect. And then, see, I really wouldn't want to do this because then I have to, although I manufacture this and it's pretty easy to fix. And the way I did that is I just uncheck snap to terrain, and then you can click individual points on a spline and adjust them. So I wouldn't really want to do this one because typically if I hadn't just done that on purpose and made this all weird and, mismatched, it's not as simple as just dragging it to a point, right? That only worked because the terrain and the topography right here is relatively flat. But there will be lots of instances where you run into that. And there is one video out there that explains how to do that, but it's not even the main focus of the video, I don't think, and it's not explained super well. So I wanted to include that specifically in this video. And something I just taught myself for this video specifically is how to use the parallel spline / polyline tool. So let me check back snap to terrain, and I'm going to build a little test road just so I can show you. Once again, always making sure we're grabbing this little ball and moving it so we don't screw ourselves. Future selves, really. Because you won't notice that your splines are, they're not on the ground. They're here, 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 and here. But putting down this test road just so I can show you, you come in, you're going to select the spline, click right here. This is the selected polyline spline parallel shape tool. I have these preset. These are I've been kind of working out what I think is a decent setting, and they actually need to be a little bit closer. So the lower this number, the closer these polylines are going to spawn. And we'll click create. See it spawn these two, and they are, as it states in the tool, parallel to our original. And so I'll show you what it looks like to add a sidewalk onto this. So WE generators, pavements, and not concrete, it's actually asphalt. And then I'll grab the asphalt narrow sidewalk. And you can see that it has laid our sidewalk literally right up against it, which is perfect. We may even want to back it off just a hair, but you can constrict a little bit of the road. These roads, not so much, but the larger roads, so long as they can fit a supply truck through them, or I guess really an Abrams should be your measurement, but that shouldn't be an issue. As long as they can fit like an Abrams through it, you've got a plenty wide road. And yeah, I'll just throw one on the other side so you can see this is what it would look like to have a nice little residential road super quickly, super easily. And you saw me make this little stretch. It takes no time at all to put road length down. I could build, this map, I could build this whole map's road infrastructure in 45 minutes. This would be a breeze. I'm actually kind of thinking about seriously building this map because of how easy it would be to do some of the things that are more annoying, and then I could get into some of the things I've been wanting to get into, which are more custom POI design, custom base design, things like that, using the existing assets, right? I just kind of want to get into the city design and stuff like that and not already have something built. Because you'll see in Boone, it's based in Boone, North Carolina. I wanted that to be like Boone. That was the whole idea with that one. But I'll show you real quick before we get off the whole road sidewalk thing. Same thing with the sidewalks. It's a little different than the roads, but sculpt terrain, I would recommend using that for most instances, unless it's really flat and you can get away with it. But it's nice when you've got buildings next to it and it can keep the surrounding terrain a little more flat. So that's really it for the roads and the sidewalks. I've really never seen any videos even going into sidewalk construction, so I think that's probably way more than a lot of people even know. But I'm going to come back here in a second and I'll show you guys walls, and I'm trying to think of any other. I'll look at the generators. Power lines are really the same thing as walls. Don't worry about that. Stones, I haven't done enough personally And water is honestly pretty self-explanatory. It's just kind of like roads, but it's water for the river at least. Ponds are kind of another issue. I'll touch on that in its own video, but this is pretty much gonna be it for the polyline spline section once I get done with the walls here in a second. I'm just trying to make sure that I cover everything, obviously. After that, before we jump over to my map, I'm going to cover forests, and I'm debating still whether I'm going to show a building on this map because it really that's kind of just a process you're going to have to go through that is a combination of sculpting terrain and moving objects and just getting an understanding for the engine. And that's what all this stuff is going to be. And I hope you like doing it, and I hope you move forward with the whatever map you're anticipating designing while watching this video, if that's your reasoning for watching this video. Um, because at the end of the day, my goal with this is to see more maps in the community, to shed some light on kind of what this process looks like, and just open up the opportunity for anybody who's interested, really. So I'll see you in the next one. We'll be putting walls down. It's really just like this. It'll be a very short section, and then we'll move into some vegetation. All right, so a little mini tutorial on walls and the distinction between splines and polylines. A lot of this stuff I'm teaching you, once you see the basic functions, you can figure all this stuff out pretty quick. Like the difference between a spline and a polyline is that a polyline has sharp angles. Like it doesn't curve. There's no curve to it. It's rigid. You would figure that out almost immediately. You'd go through it on a polyline and be like, oh, like that's how I figured it out. You know what I mean? So if you don't want to watch this whole video and you just want like the little, base pieces of information to get you where you need to be, then just watch the first little parts of everything and you will be set and ready to go. And I'd probably recommend the last part where I go into my map and give you some more specifics. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to throw some fences on both of these. There used to be an issue with the polylines where it would spawn all of the like individual components on one section. It seems like they fixed that in 1.6, which is pretty awesome. And like when you'd move it, every time you'd move it, it would just reset to all of them on the first thing. So you'd have to go into the polyline, not the object in it, the polyline itself. You'd have to go is closed, not closed, and it would just repopulate. Just a little little 1.3 lore for you. So yeah, only difference, these curve, these don't. So like if you've got a farm field that's on like a Midwestern square parcel, perfect. Use a polyline. Anything else, really, spline is going to be your way to go. In my opinion, I much prefer splines. So at this point, I think we're just going to move into forests. I think I'll show you guys how to do both a forest generator and a object brush forest, and then show you a little bit of the other vegetation, but that's another one of those things that you're just going to have to get into yourself. It's going to be map specific, really, which vegetation you use. So let's jump into that part. Okay, let's do the last little bit. We're going to do two different ways to make a forest. It's going to be the object brush and the forest generator. I don't super recommend forest generators because I've heard they can cause lag. Take that with a grain of salt because it's just something I heard. But open up your object brush right here. You're going to first clear out this and then set class. It's just going to bring it right back, but you'll likely have 3 random objects in here. I'd already cleared it out, but just for your sake, you're going to add however many you want. I'm just going to do 3 for now. I'm going to open them all up, and then we're going to come into Arma Reforger, prefabs, vegetation, go to tree, because I'm going to do a little forest, obviously. go Pinus sylvestris, and you're going to want to check these trees real quick just to make sure you're not grabbing saplings, you're not grabbing, you know, little dead trees or something weird, because they don't always look exactly like what they look like on the, you know, preview. So I like this one right here. I'll grab this and I'll do my best to get a sapling and a stump for a little presentation. So here are these. And so these are all the base configurations. I'm not going to adjust any of this, and I'll just show you what it looks like with the stock settings. So you just click, drag, and it's populating the objects that you've selected based upon the base configuration right where you're dragging. And I don't have any terrain down, right? So it looks a little weird, but you kind of get the idea. And this is probably a little too tight if you were going to do a lot of this kind of forest. But honestly, and I may have grabbed like the autumn versions of these plants or these trees. That's a post 1.6 thing that I'm not super used to. Okay, when you get close, they get pretty green. But for this section, we'd be okay. We could actually do, and I'm going to increase the radius a little bit because I don't want to take that much time. We can actually do it pretty dense just because we're not going to have a ton of forest on this map. It's a prairie. And right now I'm just doing kind of a rough estimate of the forest. You would come in after and probably clean it up manually. I would recommend. I've definitely done that plenty. And, you know, you're just going to click, delete, click, delete, click, delete. It's very easy to do that and much easier than spending, you know, taking a painstaking amount of time sitting here and looking right at the satellite map and saying, oh, where are the trees exactly at? No, just do like a little rough draft because all of this other area is going to get filled in with, you know, likely in these areas, some taller grass or something that's going to blend into these areas. So it's not going to be, and also the sat map's not on the game when you're playing. So people aren't like, oh, he didn't put all his stuff exactly where it's at. Nobody knows. Don't worry about that stuff. As long as it's not on your road, you know, you're blocking all your roads or something, don't worry about it. So that's the object brush. I'll show you how to adjust the actual settings. So say this was too dense for you. You're just going to adjust the bottom distance right here. So I'll put that at 3 for this, and you can see, I'll just do it for this one because it's the most visually obvious, the difference in the spacing, all right? I would also recommend changing the pitch angle so that you have your trees rotated a different way each time and they're not all facing the exact same direction because it's going to look weird if you do it that way. So just make sure you change that. You change your bottom distance if you want it to be, you know, more sparsely populated. Ooh, honestly, no, for trees do not have a line to normal, but when you're doing bushes, when you're doing plants, like there's a great example on my map I'll show you, but if you're going up against like the side of a steep hill that is covered in plants, you want to align them to normal. And what that means is, I'll drag this in, and if you press Control Shift down, it'll auto snap to ground at normal. And you can see it's now like in line with the terrain. It's not level with, you know, 90 degrees, it's level with the terrain. So that's object brush. That's, you know, some of the little ins and outs of that. And then forest generator is super simple. You literally are just creating a shape, and I'd probably recommend Polylines for the forest generator, not splines, because you can get a little more specific and then cut around corners and not have to worry about adjusting your curves and such. Just put more lines down. But I'll just do a section like this as an example. And once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's probably not going to be perfect. So we'll go into here, prefabs. This is going to be another one of those generators. So WE generator, find forest. And I'll grab forest pinus. I think this is a new one, so we'll see what this looks like. And obviously I've not been keeping up with my layers. I'm just showing you for, you know, wow, that was a really quick generation. Let's see what it looks like. It's not horrible. I like that. But you can see it's got a nice shape to it already. There is a definite appeal to a forest generator. But like I said, I've heard some things about it causing lag, and I did get rid of them on my map and replaced them all with object brushes and did a lot of manual tree placing. But if they've potentially fixed that in 1.6, and also it may never have been an issue because it doesn't make a ton of sense for them to have a whole thing in the game that if it's used for anything that it's supposed to be used for, it would cause a ton of server performance and client side performance. But you know, lots of crazier things have happened, so I'm not going to put it past anything. But that's really it as far as I think the base of mod or map development goes. Obviously, I'll be looking at this afterwards, and if I'm wrong, you'll be knowing because there'll be another part after this that's not my map and me just kind of going over some more things that are more down the road specific. But hopefully next time I see you, you'll be on my map and I can kind of stunt a little bit instead of just you looking at nothing aside from a satellite map. All right, if you've reached this point in the video, you should have really all the information you need in order to get your map made. I think I might have said, I don't remember exactly, that I was going to make a video start to finish all the way to a conflict mode. That will have to be a separate video because I'd like to touch on some more specific things in that. But this is my map. Currently, I'm in the process of building the football stadium, and it's not one-to-one, right? I'm using vanilla assets, but you can kind of get an idea of the possibilities with just what you have available. See, this is a medium vehicle ramp flipped over to act as almost like a ballast, a floating ballast for the stadium. And I'm going to add columns in a lot of sections, but this is just the base. And this is an FBX file that I added. I may make a video on that. There's much better videos available already on how to import FBX files to Arma, and I'm not a Blender, aficionado, so that's really not my space to be making a video. But I wanted to come to this map to kind of just give you an idea of, first off, what a finished map looks like. And like I said, when I say finished, I don't mean I'm done working on it. There's lots of things that I still want to add, but this map is being played on right now. So finished in the sense that it's got a conflict mode set up. It's fully constructed to the point that, there's no empty space. Can space be, can some of these forests be replaced by buildings and structures? Of course, and that's the plan. Like there's a Harris Teeter, right? Where is it? Where are we at? Went the wrong way. There's a Harris Teeter, like right around up here. Pretty sure it's right here. I'd love to add that. I love this shopping center area. This is an area I want to touch on. This is, and I'm not perfect at this. Like I'm not sitting here like, oh, this is exactly what you should do. You could probably do a better job than this. But this is, the level of detail that you can take it to, and I'm sure much, much more. But I've got curbs, on all of these. These are all polylines. Here, I'll open my polyline view, and you can see, how many polylines we've got. And it's not populating them all like it used to. There are a lot of polylines on this map, and that's just polylines, right? The buildings, the props are a huge component of the map. And the ordering that you do this, I recommend you join the Discord I'm going to link, because I can't fit that kind of specific explanation in. Like that would be more of like a conversational video than anything. And you should just have the resource available to you to remember what order is believed to by a few of the map makers I know and me to be the best and the most optimal. But and once again, this isn't perfect, and I've been working through making changes, so I'll give you a little rundown. This part of the video is not going to be as concise as the first part, and I wouldn't even say the first part was necessarily too concise at times, but that section I'm pretty sure is less than an hour long, and it fits the entire map making process in from start to finish, importing all of the data you need in to getting all of the tools, right? So I don't feel bad rambling on a little bit here and kind of talking about my map, but like I was saying, the first iteration of this map I put about 150 hours into, and it looked nothing like this. And that's no exaggeration. I wish I had more like media from that, but I deleted or lost it all. I really don't even know what to say, how to describe what it looked like. There were about 3 textures total on the entire map. And then the map released on Misfits, for either the map or the server's issue, it did not run well. But then no maps ran well for, a time period. So it really, I think, was a mod configuration issue. Nonetheless, I took that as an, opportunity to just revamp the map. So I put another 300 hours into it. And at that point, what I did, and this is where I'm getting into more of, kind of design philosophy, and this is a more me specific thing, but what I did is I opened up Google Earth and I had the satellite view and I had the street view open for most of these sections. This is more so, I'm more worried about the parking lot layouts and the building locations. If you want to see some more one-to-one components, and these aren't perfect, again, like I'm still learning things as I go, even today, but these are, some areas that are very thought out. And I need to adjust some of these walls a little bit. They're a little wonky. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what I was thinking necessarily. But then you get into some of these areas and it's real nice. But I hope you get the same feeling as I do, that it does have like a very real lived in sort of feeling. Like you've got to add wrecked vehicles, and it looks like these kind of fell into the map a little more than they were. But that's a huge component. The props really bring life to your map. So this is one of the first kind of like prop laydowns I ever had. And this building has been swapped out multiple times. I had Wolf's building pack on up until recently, and I still need to adjust the location of this actually a little more. But I've since gotten rid of Wolf's building pack because of 1.6. The assets available are really awesome, actually. All of these, hold on, let me give you all of these new apartment buildings, all of these new barracks, it's a bunch of new military, technically, assets, but they're like, base assets, which is perfect for really any map because you can make them whatever you want. They don't have to be what they are. It's an illusion. You're creating an illusion, really, at the end of the day. Unless you're, once again, going back to the whole Blender thing, unless you're really, really proficient in Blender and you plan on making tons of custom assets for your map, you're gonna have to make do with about 10 different house variants and, maybe 2 or 3 colors within those, but 10 house variants, 1 real church variant, 2 store variants, 2 pub variants, now with 1.6, like maybe 5 apartment style building variants, 1 hospital, 2 or 3 garages maybe, and a limited selection of vegetation assets. So I did mention earlier that I would show you a good point to show you where to align to normal. This is actually an area I need to flatten out. I noticed just the other day when I was playing, or smooth out really. Something like this. And actually, that seems to be the issue. I tried to come in and smooth it, I'm sure, one time, trying to be quick. And it actually needs to be sculpted down a little bit and then re-smoothed. yeah, so this will kind of just be like a little, you can watch me do a little bit of this design and maybe understand through that what some of this process might look like for yourself. Once again, if you've gotten through to this point, you should have what you need. You don't need to watch this section. There may be parts in it that are super helpful that don't make it into the first section because I don't feel like re-recording a lot of that. But I do hope, once again, like that this is a helpful video that um you make a map off of this. I think most importantly, that would be my biggest thing, that you really honest, if you have any suggestions, if you let me know, please, because I'd love to, if there's any points where this video didn't help you, I can make further videos, and I do plan on making further videos. I've alluded to that quite a few times. So just let me know, I'm a pretty available guy for the most part when it comes to like Discord. I don't gatekeep that. I don't really care if anybody has my Discord. If I want, I'll just ignore you. At the end of the day, it's Discord. But I probably won't. If you're nice and you just ask for help, I'll reach back out to you. I'll get you on the right track.